I think a lot of times in them situations that you mentioned, as far as you having to go to both people, I think that they just might not want to make the decision ahead of time to even really give it thought. Sometimes parents are pretty busy and they may hear you, but they ain't really trying to deal with it right now. And so nobody is really vested in really making that decision. I've had instances like that. It doesn't mean that one is more qualified than the other, but sometimes as parents, you have to understand that both of y'all are busy, so somebody has to make that decision. And when I found myself coming into those situations, I just have to go ahead and make a decision because a decision still has to be made, especially if your child is seeking a decision that's warranted for them. You know, they may want to do something after practice. They may have a birthday party that they may want to attend. They may have something that needs to happen within a certain amount of time. And sometimes when both parents put it off, the child comes back and it may sound like an asshole, but I told both of y'all. I tried to tell y'all, but y'all couldn't. Somebody couldn't really make the decision. So I still think somebody needs to step up. Somebody always got to be the bigger person and take the lead on that. And I'd rather that be me.
Yeah, I agree, Jared. Because as a man, look, we got to wear the black hat. So for those who don't know, when I say the black hat, it means reference like the cowboy movies. The good guys always wore the white hat. Bad guys always wore the black hat. So men have to wear the black hat sometimes. And sometimes, it's hard to tell your kids no. And more likely, the mothers are not going to tell the kids no. They don't want to be the one that look like the mean parent or the nasty parent or the parent that doesn't like to let the kids do any fun. The fathers most of the time are willing to say no and deal with the consequences. But that's part of that decision making you have to do. But, at the end of the day, as the kids grow older, they are kind of look back and see, okay, and think about certain situations. I kind of understand why my dad said no. And I kind of see why he was kind of strict on me, or he allowed me to do certain things, but he wouldn't let my brother do certain things. I wouldn't let my sister would do certain things and wouldn't let my brother do that. So as men, we have to be willing to say no. We have to. I mean, in that situation, example gave, shame on your father for not saying or giving a direct answer. He should have, as the father, as the man, he should have gave the answer and shouldn't have sent it back to your mother. Unless it's a question that he cannot answer or that he could not deal with. As a man, he should have said no.
I have
at least gave an answer, whether it's yes or no.
I have a question. And honestly, it is just a question. I'm curious as to what the answer would be from so if the Hank has said Hank said that, men make the decision, the final say so, because whatever happens, they're going to be the ones that look at, be blamed or whatever and accept the consequences. So my question is, if you make a unilateral decision, right, and it impacts the family, like when people say, oh, well, I got to deal with the consequences. Well, no, it's not that you're dealing with the consequences yourself. Your family is also going to have to deal with the consequences of your decisions as well, right? So I guess my question is, if you make a unilateral decision after like as a wife is giving you that input and you just don't want to listen for whatever reason, and the consequences are what they are, do you then expect the wife to support you in fixing the mistake that you made, or do you make the unilateral action to fix what you decided to do?
Go ahead,
do y'all understand the question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand it, but I understand in life that there's consequences regardless of what decision you make. And you can still make a decision and it'd be a good decision at that time, but then it backfire and you couldn't really foresee what was going to happen. So I'm comfortable understanding that life is about consequences, some good and bad. You may see it now or later. I like data. So if I'm thinking something, sometimes I may bounce, I may come to her and I may ask her like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I'm just picking your brain a little bit. I'm ultimately going to make a decision, but I still want to factor in as much perspective as I can if I'm not familiar with it. But I'm not afraid to make the decision. So if she trusts you, like she's going to trust that whatever decision that you made, that it was a good decision at the time based on what you've seen. Now, if something backfires or there's a consequence, then she's going to trust as well that you're gonna make a way to get it out. Now, does everybody have this? I don't think everybody is able to figure things out. A lot of people don't know how to problem solve, but I can only speak for me in particular. I love problem solving, and I don't mind dealing with a consequence. I've been dealing with it since, I mean, all throughout life. Even as a child, you had consequences, whether you've seen it or not. But later on, you understand that life is about up and down. So I'm not afraid of the moment. I love to embrace everything when it comes to manhood and what a man has to do. So I don't have a problem with it. And that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'm going from like the example that you gave about taking all of the money and risking it all, right? Um, I I understand that men like to take risks, and I think the certain risks are good, especially when you're single. You can take the risk because the impact is only going to affect you. But the flip side to that is that once you're married, you have to minimize some of the risk. Not to say not to take any risk, but it to say that I'm going to take all of the money. I have a wife and I have children, and I'm gonna just invest it in this business and hope that everything works out. I don't think that that's a wise decision when you have a family. Now, not to say you can't take risks. Why do you have to take all of the money? Maybe you set aside, let me just, we got 250,000 set aside. And I know I got, X, Y, and Z, got kids, got this and that. Let me just, leave maybe 60. And then I'll take the rest and we'll risk that. Like, those are the kind of things that I would expect a leader to think about, like the worst case scenarios. And I think sometimes when we're talking about this, I've heard examples saying, even if your, husband, does X, Y, and Z, you need to follow him, period. That wouldn't be wise when you have a family. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got you. That's why vetting is so important, because you have to examine the person that you're going to be with, their decision making. I mean, I would think that if somebody has a gambling problem and they just will risk it all, that you will see those things before you get married, and you can understand the type of person you're dealing with. That's why you got to ask the right questions, and as far as how they think, and just pay attention. I mean, I don't know too many people that all of a sudden he just became a risk taker. This is something that I believe that most people probably see some sign of it. Now, whether you was ignoring it, whether you didn't pay attention to it, then that kind of falls on you. But once you marry, it just is, I'm not saying you have to deal with it, but that's like a tough situation to be in. So if you don't want to be in a situation like that, then you need to do some vetting. You need to ask those uncomfortable questions prior to you getting married, so that you don't find yourself in those type of situations. I mean, some things are just stupid. So if the person you with just making some stupid ass decisions, that's really on you. That's something that, for the most part, I will hope that you would have seen. And if it keeps happening, then I guess it's another decision that you got to make. But if you do find yourself in that predicament, then have a conversation, and at least offer some support as to why you may think, and hopefully y'all can come to some type of resolution to making sure y'all don't risk it all and lose it. But I've heard stories of people, it took all the money and it's just gone. It took all the money, and it's just like, you really can't really say nothing but ask the question, like, how was he when y'all was dating? Because right now y'all married, and he's emptying out the bank accounts every single time and putting y'all in these situations. So, like, what was he like? You didn't see any of this, and then I guess it just kind of falls on the person at that point.